My name is Bjorn Ekeberg. I'm co-founder and CEO of Recharge Health, and we're the creators of FlexBeam, the world's first portable red light and infrared therapy solution. We've also been among the very, very first to sort of broaden the scope of a very narrowly defined red light therapy and bring it to a larger group of people.
What led you down that path initially?
I've always been lifting weights, going to the gym, keeping myself healthy since I was young, or trying to at least find ways to always sort of stay in shape. I was not on a career path toward health at all, actually. I was sort of on an academic path to, I could have become a professor in philosophy of science. I did a PhD in Canada many years back, and I was really interested in physics, the foundations of physics, and how paradigm shifts happen within science. And as it happened, I met two of my co-founders. I knew them from the past. They were working, the Europeans based in Asia, and they're working on supply chain production for light devices and for electronics devices. And they had come across some really fascinating research. And at first, it kind of baffled me that I hadn't heard about this before, because we're talking thousands of studies in the PubMed literature, NASA prototyping devices for astronauts using red and near infrared light and getting really remarkable results that are way beyond sort of placebo, clearly demonstrated in the literature. And I was kind of shocked that we haven't heard about this before, and realized that this has to do with the lack of a clear application or a device that really can take this kind of thing mainstream. So I decided to join a team 5 years ago to help bring this out to market. And as for my background with philosophy of science, I guess I really appreciated at that time that this is part of a health revolution that I could see happening. I myself, have been an avid kind of biohacker for 10 years. I could see these very nerdy, nichey things that I was doing at the time starting to trend. And our idea is that this kind of health optimization movement is part of what is going to bring this kind of therapy or this kind of technology and take it mainstream.
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. So you mentioned the fact that there was a lot of kind of information already out there, research and things, and there were people that were aware of it within those communities, but not a lot of people, even within the educational side of it, within, the health educational side of it and things like that, didn't really know about it. And still, I think to a great degree, it's becoming more popular, but I think to a great degree, there's still a lot of common, what would you call that? The John Q public out there that really has no idea about it or about the benefits of it. What do you think it is that holds its recognition back?
Well, I think that there are at least two factors I can point to. One is in the education generally of people who are physical therapists and doctors and so on. This is not typically textbook stuff because it hasn't quite been included yet. That is a very slow kind of process that characterizes any sort of paradigm shift in science, is that it takes a certain while for evidence to accumulate and build up. And there has to be a lot of sort of momentum behind that before the shift really happens, I think. So that, in a sense, is to be expected. But I think this revolution that I think we're part of now and that we're starting to see is really comes down to the device, the actual application. Because there are many ways you can get red light and near infrared light therapy. There's a lot of buzz around it, but there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot, from our perspective, also bad products out there, or products that make a lot of the same kinds of claims without that even being physically possible that they could do what they claim to do. So I think this is kind of holding it back. And our vision when we started is that if you make something so easy to use and so powerful and effective, and people can just put it, straight on the skin, and it gives you what you need 10 minutes a day, that's what it needs to build, like to actually get this into the homes of people. That's what would tip the scales in favor of people wanting to buy that for yourself or for your home or for your family, because it is kind of a little doctor at home, so to speak. And we are starting to come there in terms of products now. I mean, I would say, I'm unashamed to say we have produced sort of the first and the best of the portable range, and we have another version of this coming soon that we think is going to make this even easier and better for people to use. But really, I think it comes down to the kind of applications that have been out there that are not very practical, like undressing in front of a wall panel, for example. Like for regular use, this is the main inhibiting effect I can see.
What makes whether it's your product or just products in the future, what really starts to make those products better, more effective? Obviously, when you mentioned usable, that's a big thing too, but just I think from the more effective side, what starts to make that happen?
Well, in the whole literature around the red light therapy, or photobiomodulation, as it's called scientifically, there's of course a whole lot of talk about wavelengths, and they're very important. So these kinds of physiological effects only happen at very specific, like certain spectrum of light. Here you will find a lot of resonance between the different devices, whether you have a wall panel or a lamp or something like this, will have be within the same range. It's red and near infrared are the two sort of main bandwidths that can compare. But in our research that we have done, like digging into actually developing this device and looking more deeply at the different thresholds and power levels that are required to get real effects, I would say power is the main key to making an effective device. And in order to understand this better, you have to realize that near infrared light, which is the main driver of a lot of these effects, and we can talk about the distinction between red and near infrared in a bit, but near infrared specifically has the ability to penetrate the skin. So it goes below the dermis or the epidermis. It can actually get into muscle tissue. It can get into joints, ligaments. It can penetrate 2 to 4 inches in, depending on sort of what's in the way, but really depending on the output. So one of the things you have to consider if you are, for example, using the very common application of a panel, is that if you are 3-4 inches away from a panel, which is anyway recommended because it radiates quite heavily and it's quite hot, if you are 3-4 inches away, you lost 80-90% of the output power. In order for infrared light to actually be beneficial underneath the skin, it has to be able to penetrate. And in order to penetrate, you need a certain power output, and you need it to be straight on the skin. That's when you start really seeing like remarkable results.
When you say the 3 to 4, is that something that can be 3 to 4 inches? Is that something that can be like revved up if, and this is just, my uneducated on this subject, but the power output is increased? Is that something where you could see 5 inches, 6 inches, or is there just a limit based on the light itself?
Is a very interesting question. We haven't been able to test what happens at extreme power levels. Presumably, it will go a little bit longer. We built into our device like very, very powerful LEDs, and we had to build fans into them to cool them down. So what you will generally see are very simple, like in the marketplace, there will be a lot of simple LED diodes. If they have no fans or no way of cooling them down, then they are probably not powerful enough to really penetrate into your skin and get you that kind of effect.
Gotcha.
Let's say 3 to 4 inches in. That also, of course, depends on what's in the way. You won't really be able to penetrate a bone, but into like an open tissue, for example, you can get quite deep. And the way we designed our device here is to make it flexible around an area, so you can get, as I'm showing you here for those who are looking at the video version, you get light from 3 different angles at the same time. So if you want to really power up a knee, for example, like you can get light shining, like penetrating 2-3 inches in from each side from 3 different angles. You're literally able to heal like a meniscus, for example, or like inside of the joint itself. And this you can't really do with anything else that we've seen on the market. There are a lot of sort of general beneficial effects from red light therapy. But if you really want to get those effects that are talked about in the literature, you need to go deep, so to speak.
What are the mechanisms behind it that make it so powerful and just work in general, I guess? Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. The Weight Room Podcast is thrilled to announce our new sponsor, Prime Science. They're leaders in harnessing scientific research to revolutionize your fitness journey. With a firm foundation in the latest health sciences, Prime Science offers innovative products to help you achieve and surpass your fitness and health goals. These tools are more than just accessories. They're the result of rigorous scientific research aimed at optimizing your health. Dive deeper into how you can transform your approach to fitness at primescience.co.uk. Trust me, with Prime Science, you're in scientifically sound hands.
Yeah, I mean, you have here red and near infrared, again, working at the same time in most of these devices. And this is a source of confusion for, I think, for a lot of people, because it's called red light therapy, because it's very clumsy and cumbersome to call it red and near infrared light therapy. So usually the two things are combined, but they have very, very different effects. So red light therapy, like the actual red light wavelengths, are very beneficial for the skin. And there the mechanism seems to be stimulation of collagen and elastin production in the skin. This is why there's a real explosion now of cosmetic devices, right? That uses predominantly red light. I think most of them don't even have any infrared in them, because you can get a lot of beneficial surface stimulation of the skin from red light. Very, very beneficial for the skin. And you don't need a lot of power to make that work on the skin level. That's why some of these applications that I think genuinely work for people, like masks and so on, have a relatively low wattage output. You don't need a lot of glow on the skin in order for it to stimulate and produce a response. However, when it comes to near infrared light, that's when you really actually need a very powerful source, because you need to be able to penetrate underneath the skin. And here the mechanism that is well established is that it stimulates the mitochondria in your cells. To some degree, red light also does this, but it's near infrared that really has the ability to both to penetrate and to stimulate the mitochondria, the energy generators, generally speaking, in your cells. So you are literally feeding your cells energy that it converts into ATP, and that it basically uses to improve the whole recovery process. I mean, this is what the body does on a daily level, right? Like this is what it's made to do, is to heal and repair and restitute anything that is any kind of potential issue that is going on. So when you stimulate yourself with near infrared light with this particular part of the spectrum at a certain dose, you are quite literally turbocharging that process in the body so that it goes smoother, more efficient, and has more energy. So you can recover faster. That is very generally stated what the mechanism is for near infrared light.
Was there a fear maybe of like an overstimulation of cells, like in reproduction or reproduction of cells, or because of the energy, or like was there any thoughts or anything in going into that side of it? And if so, like have those things been, I guess, researched or just cleared in general?
Yeah, that's been quite heavily researched, is the kind of dosing window, and how much is needed and how much is too much, and what happens if you get too much. So the concept here that may be familiar to some of your listeners is called hormetic stress. This is the response in your cell when it's stimulated in a certain way that basically stresses it on a certain level so that it has to bounce back stronger. This is literally what happens when you work out, you lift weights. You are stressing the cells and the muscle fibers, and so that it triggers a process by which the body then goes into a kind of recovery mode and rebuilds those muscles stronger. Hormetic stress is the main sort of mechanism, or the way in which near infrared light can also stress the cells. So in a very similar and analogous way to lifting weights, there's also something about more is not always better, or doing it for too long is not always better, because what ends up happening is the body kind of adapts. And when it comes to near infrared lights, and we've seen this quite a lot, is that if you use the device, let's say for 1 hour in the same place, the recommended time is 10, maybe max 20 minutes if you really have an issue, because it's a very powerful light. If you use it for 1 full hour, you will not get any effects because the body will literally just adapt. It won't get that hormetic stress response. So the stress response is it's very key that you find that window. And I think that most of your listeners also know that if they've done a really heavy, great workout, the last thing you would do is just run back and do it the same again without allowing your body to recover. And it's the same principle.
Gotcha. No, that's a really good analogy. It makes perfect sense. And is that something that, like, as you, let's say you're doing it for knee pain or something, if you're going to do right here, like a programmed knee pain recovery with that red light therapy or infrared light therapy, is that something like, okay, maybe it's starting out at 10 minutes and you said maybe 20 minutes if it's something that really needs it. Is that something that you're going to start to back down as it does start to heal and get better? Or is it just like you need a certain threshold to achieve those goals regardless of the level of injury?
Generally, you need the same threshold. In some cases, it may even rise a little bit with time. However, we highly recommend you take breaks in between. In the same way as with training, you don't go training every day. It's sometimes you just leave the flex beam or your red light therapy device alone and let your body just go through a cycle without it.
Gotcha.
But there's also a cumulative effect, so that the best results you will see after 1 to 2 weeks and so on. So it's important to continue, but not to overdo it.
And is there a certain level where it's like, all right, my knee is better, but I'm going to keep it on here to like strengthen it further? Is that a thing, or is it just like, all right, what's good is good?
You mean whether to keep using it after the problem has been resolved?
Correct. For a certain
Yep.
injury, that is.
I mean, generally it promotes strength, right? So it's an undercommunicated side of this and a real opportunity for athletes and for weightlifters and fitness goers and so on, is that you don't necessarily need to be injured to use it. A lot of people do because it's a targeted spot or there's some sort of a reason why they're using it. But generally speaking, the process I described before of boosting the mitochondria to produce more ATP, to have more energy for the body, etc., that whole process is, the top level view of it is that actually strengthens the body overall. So when you're healing an injury, you're strengthening that area that really needs to be back up to a certain functional level. But when you keep using it for those kinds of muscles, you are strengthening them over time as well. In the sense that if your knee is healed from the pain and you can walk again functionally, that's when we highly recommend that you keep using that for a while longer, because it will actually improve. Your body is very good at getting back to 80% or 85%. It's often very bad at getting like from the 85 to 100%. Like we're quick back to functional, but to get from functional to optimal, that's when you need that extra stimulation.
So if you're going to utilize this, let's say, it isn't for an injury, it's maybe post injury and you're just, like you said, strengthening that area up some more. Um, is it recommended, or is there any recommendation out there that says do it like before a workout, do it after a workout, do it the day after, the day before? Like how do you kind of structure that?
Yeah, and this is a great question. And this is something we're like working with a lot of athletes and case studies in parallel with the literature, because there have been studies showing effects of both. We've done our own in-house study replicating a large PubMed study that was done a few years back on strength and conditioning. And among the results that we got were the same. They were actually more pronounced in our study than the PubMed study, maybe because of the device that we're using. But similarly, you get results if you use it before, and you get results if you use it after. So I work with several athletes who have been trying both, sometimes a combination. There's actually some cases in which people like to use it during. I'm not sure if that's always possible, like physically speaking, but that can also work for very specific conditions. Generally speaking, using it before can be very beneficial for sort of warming up and then also stimulating and boosting sort of the resilience of the muscles before you use them. So it can give you more, let's say, more rain or more give when you have to do a push. We have endurance athletes, for example, that report that when they use it on their legs before running, they last a little bit longer. Just when the lactic acid response starts kicking in and they think, oh, that's it, I'm done, then they actually have a little bit more give than they thought themselves, right? And this is consistent with sort of the research showing the kinds of effects. So maybe it's slightly better to use it beforehand, but then at the same time, using it after will kickstart your recovery. So you might bounce back a bit stronger.
The Weight Room Podcast is proud to be partnered with Prime Science, our new sponsor and a trailblazer in health technology. Prime Science is dedicated to pushing the boundaries of what's possible in health and fitness through extensive research and scientific validation. Their products are a testament to their commitment to safe, scientifically backed health optimization. To learn more about how Prime Science is redefining fitness with valid science, visit primescience.co.uk. Join us in embracing a future where fitness meets rigorous scientific practice with Prime Science. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. In what way does that using it during really help and benefit, if there is a benefit for that specific workout?
Like we've seen a couple of cases of people doing it, reporting that it works well for them. In this case, it was like using it on the abdomen or stomach during sort of core exercises in which it was not in the way. You know, you can strap this device on so you can have it there. It doesn't generally, like, it doesn't add any particular friction to your workout. I think for a lot of cases, if you're lifting weights or you're running or something, there are obvious reasons why you don't want to have this around your body while you are lifting. My point is that it can also work in its own way. The people using it on their core reported having like more sort of closer coordination and energy receptivity in that area during the workout. But I cannot tell you honestly if it would have had the same effect if they had done it after or before. It was just sort of it was a couple of strange cases, and we wanted to test it out. For us, when in the research and development of our device, our main hypothesis was about power and efficiency, right, or effectiveness. So being able to have enough output and have it straight on the skin, so no energy is wasted. That was our hypothesis starting out, that that's the way you can really reach deep into the body. That's where you can get really like much stronger results than you would get from placebo, for example, right? And this is what we really think has been borne out now by, you know, we have sold over 20,000 of these, and we're steadily accumulating a fan base. And you can look on our Trustpilot page to see organically 5-star reviews are rolling in because people really love this product and they get results with it. So that's for us the main thing that we wanted to investigate in the research is what happens if you increase the power level somewhat of what's already there to verify that A, that's safe, that doesn't have any adverse effects, and B, that it actually does produce better results. And that's what we're seeing in our studies compared to the PubMed literature, and what we are working now on bigger research grants to replicate, like, you know, with thousands of participants, that we can really demonstrate the efficacy of this.
What kind of future do you see in the usage of red light and near infrared light in regards to, all right, right now we're seeing people, you know, utilize it with you know, for their face mask, or we're utilizing it for you know, knee injury or shoulder, whatever it may be. But in the future, you know, we're really starting to see XYZ getting used in more of a mainstream way. Maybe it's in a hospital, or maybe it's in a PT clinic or whatever. What specific things are you starting to see more people's or more research, I guess, show efficacy in treating and in curing or solving this bigger problem?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, right? So there's so many possible applications. That's why I think we will see a lot more studies and use for targeted and flexible applications, so to speak, that they're for specific body parts, not just generally lighting up your room or like in front of you kind of thing, or your half your body, but specifically on certain issues, because I think that's where the most promising research is in terms of really specific results. There was a recent study out that there was a large randomized control double-blind study done in an ICU in the US, an intensive care unit, where they had participants given a sort of, it was a flexible array. I don't think they used FlexBeam because it was a somewhat lower dose device, but something you could roll around, specifically arm and hand. These were patients who were immobile due to some sort of injury. And they could show on the whole, like the group that got infrared light therapy were out of the ICU 30% faster than the control group who thought they got infrared light therapy. They got a sham device, right? So even with the placebo effect in the study, there was really pronounced effect in the long term, like overall, how quickly they recovered, and very significant results on strength. So strength, grip, and mobility, they were up 30, 40%. We, in our own studies on strength and conditioning, for example, like we used lat pull downs as an example, and we had one group getting FlexBeam and the other group getting FlexBeam with bicycle light inside and thinking they got the same thing. And it was about a 40% difference in strength conditioning, right? So these are not marginal results that any top athlete would, of course, want to embrace. These are results that really matter to a whole broad group of people. You don't have to be competitive to appreciate those levels, like 30 to 40% faster recovery time or 30 to 40% increase in strength and performance when you use it properly. So this can be a game changer for everyone, I think.
What are some things that you fight against or you aim to dispel myths or rumors, or like as a business, how do you do that? And what are some of the big things with red light that you try to get people to the reality of it while still like showing people that this can be a pretty amazing thing, but we're not going to push it to the length of going past what it does? Like how do you find that balance? And then what do you see people push back against that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a fine balancing line. That's tricky with a product that has hundreds, if not thousands, of possible applications. This was one of our main constraints when we started, was in the just how to market and communicate this, when for most people, just the very first hypothesis that you put out that light can have this effect on people usually engenders a kind of what are you talking about response, right? So it's a very long way in to convince people that, hey, this actually does have something to it. It sounds too crazy to be true. A lot of that has to do with the paradigm that I referred to earlier, and the paradigm shift I think we're part of, because we're just trained to not think of our body as like ourselves as light beings, that we are actually fully dependent on sunlight and all of the different wavelengths of light, that they can have this effect on us. We're not trained to think in that way, and our medical doctors are not. We had a pharmaceutical industry now for about a century that's dominated the way in which we tend to think about medicine, which may be effective for a lot of things, but it's also basically taking the awareness away from other more natural remedies that can be even more powerful. So that is, in the general picture, I think something we, along with other companies that are also in this field of working with light therapy and so on, that where we kind of have an alliance, is we have an interest in showing the real science behind what happens when you like when you have the right light on people, can actually have a massive effect and maybe lead to fewer prescriptions and surgeries and all kinds of medical issues. So when you say what we're fighting against, this is the that dominant health paradigm. It's about to like it's already shifting, and I think it's going to shift a lot more, because consumers are finding their own ways. They're finding their own authorities on health, and they're finding their regular doctor prescribing pills may not be the authority on health that they could have been maybe 50 years ago. That they're looking to people who are in positions even like yourself, right, who are looking into the research and trying to promote better understanding of ourselves. I think a lot of that is thankfully is shifting very quickly.
How do you, as a, thinking about it from your own individual business, but then also just the grander world of whether it's like red light or infrared light or some of the other biohacking kind of things that are out there, how do you get it into people's hands?
That's a huge part of it. And when we started, like we were actually about to launch in the US to go to an expo in Austin, Texas, I remember, in 2020. And it was the day before the expo started. COVID hit and shut the whole world down. We had to pivot online. We had to do all the marketing online. We had to convince people to try this guy out for, you have to put down your credit card details. We give you 60 days, money back guarantee, all of these different things. However, it is, as you say, it is imperative that people try it, that they get their hands on it, they feel it, and they feel the light and everything because it's new. So this is something we're actively doing. We're seeing a lot of the effect when somebody in a certain community has tried it and passes it on to other people. We've seen clearly from all our customer surveys, this is a word of mouth product. This is not something we just put out slick ads or slap a billboard somewhere and people come running. They're still naturally skeptical, as they should be, because it's a completely new thing in most cases. So trying it is key, and this is what we're working on, establishing like those clustering effects where some people in a community have it and they can pass it on. So we're working with specific sports now. For us, it's European football or soccer and baseball in the US, and a couple of other verticals where we try to have it more shown, accessible to people. They can have trials, like rentals, all of that stuff. But what we're really working on in the bigger picture is to lower the bar of entry. Mm-hmm. So I think it's possible to get to the point at which this could be a subscription model one day, that you could basically offer it to people to try out without having to buy the whole thing.
What do you see as the future of whether it's red light or infrared light, or maybe even, the next big thing in light, if there's something out there?
There will be other things in light, but I doubt that few will be as powerful as this near infrared bandwidth, maybe combined with a couple of other modalities that makes it even more effective. Because the light, we know how the body responds to light at different parts of the spectrum, and there are other wavelengths that are also interesting, but near infrared light is sort of in a class of its own. And it's also exclusively something that comes from the sun, that our near infrared light we get is usually from sun exposure. So living in a modern society in which we have a deficit of sunlight exposure or regular sunlight exposure also increases then the need to sort of supplement it this way with a more concentrated dose. So I would hope that in 50 years, this sort of our mindset toward also the sun has shifted, and that it's not just about the devices and the technology we use, but also our understanding is such that we can appreciate the sort of the natural remedy we're living underneath, so to speak, that it's not just a kind of a plethora of technological devices to prop us up. But I do think that I would go for like closer than 50 years. I would say 10 to 20 at least. I think this is common. I think it's common for people to have one of these things at home, to use it for a variety of ailments. I think it's kind of device that you can speak to and say what you need, and it will give you a dose of what you need tailored to that particular need. That this will be sort of integrated into our everyday, that you can have it at home. It's your 10 minutes every day or 20 minutes every day that you use for something. Wow. And that is well known. I think within the medical device industry, there's going to be a lot of more specialized applications and devices that we can use for very specific targeted conditions. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But I think near infrared light is kind of it is this remarkably potent and powerful sort of all-purpose kind of solution for empowering your body to heal itself. Right. And so making that accessible and having that in everybody's home, I think it's literally going to improve people's health.
That would be a great future to live in, right? Where we're more conscious about that. We're more thoughtful on those things. We invest more money, more time into those things. But man, I really appreciate you coming on. It was great getting to chat with you.
Thanks a lot for having me on, and for also promoting like good health advice to people, and for to catching up on the latest and greatest sort of thing. If any of your listeners want to check out FlexBeam for yourself, go to recharge.health. The device is called FlexBeam. You can also just search for that, and you'll find a lot of literature on the background on the technology, and hopefully try one for yourself to join this revolution that's happening right now.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.